The Neolithic. We're going to take a look at how the Neolithic, the new stone period of man, was different than the Paleolithic. All right? All right. One of the first things we'll note is that the Neolithic begins about the year 7500 BCE and goes into about the 2300 BCE for the year zero. Plants and animals had been domesticated. Therefore, people were starting to congregate, since farming was invented then, congregate in little towns and villages. You need to congregate together. They were building actual homes using sort of the wattle and daub method. That's where you actually take sticks and glue them together, hold them together with mud and earth. Okay? So they're actually building little homes rather than just living in caves. Human burial rites were becoming more elaborate. All right. These are two figurines that were found in burial tombs, holes, for lack of a better word. That one on the left there is an actual skull that's been plastered over and it's been decorated and stones have been inlaid. So it's been decorated and buried with the body. And there are other little votive figures, beads, jewelry making is happening. So there's beads of jewelry. There's weaving and that's happening at this time period. And even some early metal work is beginning to happen. This type of burial ritual, now that we have actually established ritual, is sort of a form of ancestor worship or honoring of the dead. Sometimes ancestors are looked upon to be conduits to the gods, intercessors, or even having divine powers. You'll see this across the globe. This is a small sculpture found in the first city that we know about today called Çatalhöyük in Turkey. That's how you pronounce it. It's written down there what says seated goddess of Çatalhöyük. This is around the year 6000 BCE. It's in Turkey, like I said. This is a small figurine, and of course she's a mother fertility goddess, much like the Venus of Willendorf, with the large over-exaggerated breasts and belly. But she's seated on a throne. Okay. So she's a royal fertility goddess. Okay. And seated by her side are two feline figures, probably lions or leopards, and those are often symbols of power, as you can well imagine. Leopards and lions are going to have powerful, magical symbolism attached to them throughout art. Even as far away as Mesoamerica, you're going to see lion and leopard skins being used only by the royal. Okay. This is an artist's rendering of the town or the city of Çatalhöyük. During the Neolithic, the lifespan of a person was usually between years of 30 to 35 years old. Women had usually about 4 children during their lifetime, with about half dying in infancy or childbirth. But even though Çatalhöyük started at a population of about 5,000, it never got any larger than, say, 6,000. So the population remained fairly constant. Çatalhöyük was built in a rather odd way to modern eyes, and that is that it has no streets. This town was built with no streets. You exited and entered your home through the roof, from a ladder, through a roof in your home. And that roof hole also was the place where the smoke from your cooking fires inside your home escaped. So I guess you had to be careful as to when you entered and exited your home. And you went from home to home over the roofs. Unusual. Inside the homes for some unusual things as well. First of all, the people of Çatalhöyük buried their family members and dead in the home, in the floors of their home. And inside the homes were also these sort of special shrine areas, if you want to call them, for lack of a better word, a shrine, called bulbuli. bucranias, bull bucranias. And those are the bull's heads you see referenced here on the walls. They aren't actual bull's heads. They're actually sculpted using mud and plaster, and they would have been painted red, believe it, on the tips of the horns. But what's unusual about them is they've always faced inside the room, the horns. It seems sort of a dangerous situation to me. Art historians don't really understand the meaning behind these bull bucranias inside the home, other than ceremonial. Here's some up close. They're not sure if they're referencing what we used to live on in the Paleolithic, if it's an honoring of a power symbol like the bull, which is a male fertility symbol, power god. Nobody's really sure. We're not even sure that this surrounded necessarily the burial place of the dead. Inside the homes, you'll also find carved designs and paintings, like paintings of deer and things, simple paintings like that of animals. But you'll also find something very unusual. This is the first landscape that we have found evidence of in art in the world. Around the year 6000, 6100 BCE in Çatalhöyük, it's a landscape, the first one ever that we know of. And this is actually the town of Çatalhöyük being portrayed here. The black and white squares that you see at the bottom, that is referencing the rooftops, like we were a bird looking down at the top of the city. The rooftops of the city. And that red dotted shape in the background, that's a volcano that's erupting a little bit. That volcano is actually miles away from the actual city site. But it was a very important thing for these people, this volcano, because when a volcano erupts and the lava cools quickly, it forms a piece of glass called obsidian. Obsidian. And it's a dark black or dark blackish green glass that was prized by these people. They used it for tools. They used it for decoration and jewelry. They used it for sharp scrapers and knives, things like that. And they also even used whole slabs of it and polished the surface so it would become like a mirror. This was buried with the dead. It was traded for goods. So it's actually kind of a form of currency. And actually was considered to have magical properties by these people. They hiked for miles away to go gather up this obsidian. The next thing we'll see in the Neolithic is the beginning of actual construction of architecture, monuments, okay? And these are usually ritual temple type situations here, okay? First we're going to look at how they built them, which is called the post and lintel construction method. It's still used today, this method. When you take two posts, those two uprights, you put a crossbeam across the top, you create a doorway. That's called post and lintel construction. And this is the way Stonehenge was built. This is post and lintel construction here. Very rudimentary, yes, but it's there. Those big stones that can make up Stonehenge are called megaliths. Mega, large, liths, L-I-T-H-S, megaliths, large stones, okay? A henge is a circular stone monument surrounded by a ditch. And so there are actually ditches around all of these circular sort of temple complexes like Stonehenge. There's actually a ditch outside of it. You can't really see it in the image here, but it's there. These were ceremonial sites. If you take those two megaliths posts and you put a lintel, or a megalith across the top, that's post and lintel construction, but that threesome is called a trilithon. Okay, that's called a trilithon, okay? The altar stone in the middle of Stonehenge is oriented on an equinox axis, facing both the summer and the winter equinox. And people used to bring their dead from miles around to bury it ceremoniously, their cremated remains, around the outside of the circle, okay, and sometimes on the inside of the circle. So there was an ancestor worship going on here, okay, and there was also a celebration of the seasons, the fall harvest, and the winter, the end of winter and the beginning of spring. That idea of rebirth. They found Stonehenge isn't just one spot; it's actually several interrelated henge. It's a henge complex, for lack of a better word. I think they found 7 of them so far. And they were all interrelated and interconnected. And people used to go from site to site for various ceremonies and festivals, rituals. We're going to talk about the corbelled arch in a few minutes, but mostly we're going to look at this later on in the semester. Newgrange is also a henge, but it's also something else. It's called a tumulus. Tumulus. That's an earthen burial mound because they're actually it's actually meant to be more of a grave remains inside. Okay? This is where the dead have been found to be buried inside and outside of Newgrange, okay, just like Stonehenge. And this was built about 1,000 years before Stonehenge. It's quite large and is a tumulus because not only is it an interior burial ground, but it's also got that earthen cover on it. That's what makes it a tumulus. It's got an earthen covering. We're going to see this later on in the semester too, in other cultures later on. It wasn't until the 1960s when archaeologists would continue to work and look at Newgrange and research it that they found something very unusual about Newgrange. At one of the openings, there's a little opening, a little tiny, they called a roof box, a little aperture, a little opening above the doorway. And during the winter solstice on the 21st of December, the light hits it right at the right time, and it illuminates the total interior of Newgrange. Lights it up. You get something like this inside. You'll see the megaliths that are being used to build the interior of this piece. The exterior would have been covered almost totally in white quartz. It would have been white gleaming stone outside. Inside it looked like this, and it's got carvings of different designs. People were buried here with their beadwork and other votive objects. So it had a ceremonial purpose for the dead, as well as a celebration of the passing of the seasons, the idea of harvest and rebirth in spring. People came here ritually over the course of the year, just like in Stonehenge. And the last image, there's the roof box in the middle there. You'll see that right there. It wasn't until 1960s that they finally discovered that actually happened. That's it.